everyone, Pam Gregory, astrologer. I'm going to be speaking to you today about the second half of June and the new moon that we have coming up in Gemini on the 17th or 18th, depending on where in the world you live. But I think so many of us are aware of what huge times we are in. We are really witnessing the end of an age, the end of an old paradigm, and the end of a state of being. And it's not going to happen in a day or a week or a month or even a year, but it is happening pretty quickly. I mean, so many of us are aware of these very intense energies, these big jumps in consciousness, jumps in our psychic sensitivity. And for many of us, when we think about the 3D world, it seems increasingly distant, increasingly faded, far away, not our reality, not part of our life. It's just fading away. Less colourful, more black and white, less impact on our own lives and our own realities. And there's no judgment in any of this. We are all, as individuals, in the place where we should be. But nevertheless, it is undeniable that the energies that we're experiencing right now are very different from anything we've had in our lifetime, and advancing our consciousness very, very quickly. And I know many of you feel that because you write to me about it. So we're moving into a time now where the outer planets are starting to move retrograde. Pluto moved retrograde on the 2nd of May, and in mid-June, 17th of June, Saturn will move retrograde. In August, Uranus will start to move retrograde. Right at the end of June, 30th of June, Neptune moves retrograde. So all of those outer planets for the next few months are going to be retrograde. And what that means is that we are more introspective around the archetypes that they represent. We're thinking more deeply about them. And the archetype, the symbolism themselves for each planet is sort of digging deeper into our psyche. For instance, with Pluto is the planet of power. It will be digging deeper to unearth any issues around corruption as we go through the next few months till the end of the year. Saturn moving retrograde on the 17th. In fact, it does that right at the new moon, which is interesting. Both of these planets together represent power and control. So we will be going back over how power and control have been used in our society of late, particularly since their conjunction in January 2020, and how well that has worked for the world. So it's that kind of thing. It's a more introspective, it's a digging deeper, it's a going deeper into the principles that those planets represent. So, and at the end of this month, as I say, in June, Neptune will also move stationary retrograde. And remember, a few days to either side of any planet moving stationary retrograde, the symbolism is heightened. So mid-month, it's going to be Saturn. So there may be greater attempts at control, rules, regulations. At the end of the month with Neptune, this can express in various ways. Emotionally, because it's in Pisces, we can have a feeling of overwhelm or feel quite weepy, actually. Neptune, quite emotional, feel confused. It's all too much to deal with. Issues around deception can come up, or illusion. Issues around flooding, anything to do with water, toxicity, drugs, the media. All of those things are expressions of Neptune. So we will see how it unfolds, but it also has an incredibly positive side, that it is going to help to connect us to our spiritual selves, help to connect us to our sense of oneness, connection to source, a sense of unconditional love, a sense of bliss. And particularly because Neptune is now square to the galactic center, which I mentioned in a previous couple of videos, and it's going to be in that position really till the end of 2025, but very, very tightly all through 2024 in particular. This is really going to increase our psychic sensitivity. So telepathy, healing, connection with others, all of that kind of thing. We are moving into the light body. We're moving out of density into the light body. And Saturn in Pisces has that same message. The fact that the outer planets are moving from density, from earth and water, into air and fire over the next 3 years. And they're all doing that is a very clear sign that everything is going to get faster, lighter, and more filled with light. So I think we have a lot to look forward to in that way. And yes, so many planets are changing sign in the next 3 years. In fact, if we include the dwarf planets that I often talk about, and I might do a whole separate video on this actually, planets leaving one sign and entering another, I've never been able to find a time in history, if we include some of the dwarf planets like Manwë and Haumea, etc., where this has occurred. So this really is another very clear indicator of the change in the energy and the shift of the ages that we are currently going through, particularly over the next 3 years into 2026. So one of the big things, for instance, in that regard that's happening is the dwarf planet Sedna, which has an 11,400-year orbit, changes sign on the 15th of June. It moves from the end of Taurus into Gemini. It stays there till November and then retrogrades back into last few degrees of Taurus, and then next April 2024 moves fully into Gemini until 2066. Now, Sedna is coming to its closest point to the Earth. And although that doesn't happen for about another 50 years, nevertheless, because she's got an 11,400-year orbit, that is still very significant in that we are receiving new information from her. She goes way out in space to the edge of the Oort cloud. And so when she's coming so close to Earth, she's bringing new cosmic and galactic information for us that is helping our evolution. New information for us. Now, Pluto, as I've talked at great length, has just recently, on the 11th of June, moved back into Capricorn because it's retrograde. And it will stay there until January 2024, move back into Aquarius until September, short dart back into the end of Capricorn, September to November 2024, and then move fully into Aquarius for another 20 years until 2044. So what's interesting here is that Sedna and Pluto are pretty much in lockstep over these next 18 months, in that they are both moving out of heavy, slow earth signs, with Pluto it's Capricorn, with Sedna it's Taurus, into air signs, Aquarius and Gemini. And this is an indication of speed. It's an indication of much greater focus on the mind, on communication, on AI, both benevolent and not, and on jumps in our consciousness. We are going to look back at our lives before this and wonder at the speed, how slow we lived our lives, how slowly we lived our lives compared to the speed that's coming down the track for us. So things are going to move very quickly. And with AI, which is also coming down the track very quickly, we have to be extremely discerning as to whether this is beneficial for us in each case or not. I mean, there's some incredible healing technologies out there at the moment. More are coming onto the public stage almost monthly. And some are incredibly helpful for our health. But we have to be discerning because that is not true in all cases. So we're going to learn with this shift of some of the major planets into air signs that everything is about energy, frequency, and vibration, because it is, and it always has been. We just, as humanity, haven't fully realized it till now. So let me share the chart for the new moon. So as always, I set this for London, England. This is where I live. And this is happening at 5:36 UK time on the 18th. It's happening at 9:36 p.m. Pacific time on the 17th, the day before. So it depends where you are in the world. So don't forget to set a new intention. It's the perfect time in the month to do that with every new moon. See where 26 degrees of Gemini falls in your chart. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can download a free birth chart from my website, pamgregory.com. Go to the link below in the description, and you can get a 2-part video series that will take you from zero to understanding where all these points that I talk about in the updates are for you and what it means with each update, what it means for you in your life. And it starts a very exciting astrological journey. So here, as always, with the new moon, we have the sun and the moon together at 26:43 of Gemini. Now, Gemini is about our words, our communication, our thoughts. It's also about social media. It's about our perception. And it's interesting that this new moon in Gemini is happening just 3 days before the Cancer solstice. And I want to say that the Cancer solstice is obviously a very important part of this second half of June. I've already done a long video with David Farrell, plant medicine expert. I'll put the link for that below because it's really important to get the full picture for the second half of June, that you see that too. And I've gone into a lot of detail in that video, including the dwarf planets, etc. So take a look at that. Don't miss that bit out. But because this new moon is happening just 3 days before the solstice, and as I've mentioned in that video, Gemini is moving very quickly. Mercury is moving very quickly in its own sign of Gemini. It's moving right through Gemini from the 11th to the 26th, really speedy. Uranus is now moving quickly after being almost stationary in the mid degrees of Taurus for a long time. It's moving on to new degrees as well. Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury. So there's a sense with those, so much about the mind and communication, that we are seeing with new eyes. We are seeing with new eyes, new perspective, particularly because it's so close to that solstice, that new beginning. And so facts and information, Gemini, that we may have known before, we now see differently. We see through a fresh lens. So I think that's a very important part of this new moon because it's a new beginning. I think also we are going to start to realize more and more, linked to the importance of air, energy, frequency, vibration, that, as Lynn McTaggart said, thoughts become things. Thoughts become things. The beginning of any manifestation is initially a thought that develops into a bigger idea, that develops into a feeling about it. That, I've often quoted the analogy of how an architect will build a house. He'll have a thought for it, then an idea that will grow. He'll put it down on 2D paper, and eventually it'll become 3D bricks and mortar. But that's really the process of manifestation for anything. Everything begins with a thought. So we are going to start, I think, particularly with Saturn being very strong here, stationary. That's what the S is for. To Mercury, which is the ruler of this new moon, more disciplined in our thinking. We're going to observe. This is one of the steps in evolution, actually, to start to recognize that we are not our thinking, we are not our mind, that we can step back and be the observer and watch our thoughts and therefore catch them and say, no, we're not going on that negative self-run. We're not going on that beating self up. We are going to be disciplined, Saturn, stop the scattering, Gemini, of our minds, and we are going to really hone our thinking, because that is the first step in manifestation. And I think this is a really, really big part of this new moon as we lead into the solstice. Also worthy of note, we have the planet Pluto, particularly because it's at the anaretic degree, just 8 minutes off from the very end of Capricorn, and that often operates as a kind of shadow expression of the sign. There will be, I think, more attempted power and control over communication, maybe even over our thinking, perhaps. So be aware of that, and you don't always have to make your words public. You can keep them internal, and I think this is also part of the split between the natural and organic versus the synthetic. Because if we are in the middle of a wood in nature, I think we are, without technology, I think we are very much our own person then, with our own thoughts. So Gemini is also the sign linked to choices. And I've talked in the last couple of videos about how this incredibly important T-square of Pluto to the nodal axis, north node, south node, which is going to run till the end of the year, a lot of a big theme of that is about choices. Which choice are we going to make? Are we going to stay with the old, the stale, the deadening, the routine, because it's familiar and it feels safe? Or are we going to step out and have a whole new adventure, which is going to give us a lot of soul's growth and a lot of excitement and do something different? Because the message of Uranus in Taurus is shake up the stale, shake up the deadening, do something different, because the energies are so different, so high frequency coming in now. So Pluto in that T-square to the nodal axis is really reinforcing that whole theme of choices. And please, please, please be wise and conscious in your choices. Don't just barrel along because things are convenient. Really think deeply about where these choices may lead you. And we have another very important T-square as well, because Neptune here is square, very tightly square to the new moon, the sun and moon, and it is also square to the galactic center, as I mentioned earlier. Now, this doesn't look like a very equal T-square, but it is, because it's all exact to the degree, really, of 27. And so this is saying when you feel confused, overwhelmed, baffled, in a fog with the facts and information, what do you believe, what do you not, to really tune into your intuition, connect to the galactic center, which is brilliant for checking into our link with the cosmos, our spiritual connection, our intuition, and also drop into your heart. Remember, it is our hearts that keep us human. What does it mean to be human as we go through these months? What does it mean to be human? Keep that question rolling around your mind. But also, I think we are going to be receiving a huge amount of information very, very quickly, because of what I've been saying about Mercury in its own sign moving quickly, Uranus also moving quickly, higher octave of Mercury, a lot of information. So we're going to, again, need our discernment. We're going to need to pull back, bare feet on the grass, being in nature, dropping into silence, dropping into stillness, dropping into bliss as often as you can. And really, bliss is a million miles from the nightly news. It's a million miles. So dropping into bliss. And also dropping into simple joy. That is Jupiter in Taurus, finding simple joy in your days. And whatever it says on the nightly news, and I really suggest you don't watch it because there's not much good news in it, I think it's imperative that somehow we find joy in every day. We find joy in every day, because we have to have a joyful life. We can't go through many months and years not feeling that. And bringing it back to the simple, listening to the bird song and saying, wow, isn't that beautiful? Looking at the spring leaves in the Northern Hemisphere. Look at that green. It's like it's lit up. It's incredible. Sunshine in England. That's really something to celebrate. So really bring us back to something very fundamental and simple. That's part of this new moon too. But as I say, the next step in this part of June is the solstice, and please do check out the video that I did with David. So the other thing to say is this is a very creative new moon, because we have Venus and Mars in Leo. Leo is color, it's beauty, it's shining your light, it's creativity, and it's very it's like big beauty. So I particularly think of art or fashion or design or something visual with Leo. But of course, with 3 planets, including the ruler in Gemini, that's about words. That's all about words. And so whether it's words or images or art or whatever it is, this has great potential for creativity and a whole new project, a whole new creative project, because it's the new moon. Pluto here is in quite an unusual aspect to Mars. It's called a quindicile Q. This is something that Noel Till, my master tutor, I don't know if he actually discovered it or invented it even, but it's a 165-degree aspect with a very tight orb of 2 degrees either way. And it's an aspect of upheaval or obsession or upset. And here between Pluto and Mars, it's very much about power battles. And it's also about the individual sense of power versus the state, because Leo is one of the signs I really see as being very strong in sovereignty, your own individual power versus the power of the state, and the tension between those. So a very rich, I think, new moon. We are very, very soon going to see the nodal axis tip back into Aries and Libra. I'm going to be talking more about that in the next couple of videos, because that's a very significant change. And it's going to move the focus into a different pair of houses for you, because wherever the nodal axis sits, and it's always in opposing houses, it will energize, activate, put some focus on those houses in your birth chart for the 18 months that the nodal axis is moving through that sign, those signs. So it will be activating a different pair of houses when it moves into Aries and Libra for you. But I'll be talking about that in the next couple of videos, as I say. So a significant shift of energy again in July. So I'm going to stop sharing here. And other dates to note, I think, as we go through June. 25th of June, that's a pretty tense day. We have Mars square to Uranus at 21 of Leo Taurus. That's a tense day. Explosive energy, I would say. This is a signature for earthquakes of all kinds, shocks, strong urge for freedom, rebellion, independence, not wanting to be held down. So there could be literal earthquakes, it could be political, financial earthquakes, whatever. But it's a tense and explosive energy around the 25th of the month. And the last few days coming after that, on the 27th, we have the moon square Pluto, very intense feelings. On the 28th, we've got the sun semi-square Uranus. The 29th, the moon opposing Uranus. The same day, we have Mercury semi-square Uranus. And then on the 30th, we have Mercury semi-square Mars. But the bigger deal is Neptune becoming stationary retrograde on the 30th, that will really spill over a few days to either side of that. But got some feisty, rebellious, restless, edgy energy days, those last few days of June. And remember also with Neptune, we may see a lot of, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, a lot of flooding, a lot of water issues coming up. And remember that Neptune is the planet linked to dreams. And I've said it in videos, but quite some time ago, that it's so helpful to get your own higher guidance from your dreams. So many of you may keep a dream diary, but if you don't, particularly while Neptune, really up to the end of 2025, is squaring the galactic center, it's a fantastic time to ask your dreams, or even do some automatic writing. Actually sit down same time every day and say, whatever is for my highest good and the highest good of all, let it come through me. And with your dreams, as you fall asleep at night, ask a question. What is my next step with XYZ? Show me the best option between A and B, whatever the issue is. And if not that night, then usually within 2 or 3 nights, you get an answer from your dreams, often quite a surprising answer. So use your dreams. Keep a pad and pen next to your bed, and as you wake up, don't open your eyes, don't move, try and stay in the same position. And recall the dream first, and then you can open your eyes and write it down, because as soon as you open your eyes, it's gone. They're very ethereal. So, but you can get some very rich material from your dreams. And with this increased psychic sensitivity, this is a fantastic period of time to do this. And remember that everything cascades from our frequency. Everything in our reality cascades from our frequency, from our inner radio dial that we set. And ideally, we set it to a coherent emotion, positive emotions like love, joy, compassion, peace. And yes, we can all have our down days, but try and just go into a state of let go and let God. When you have days like this that you feel pretty pummeled by the energies, but try, if you can, as far as you're able, to keep your energy coherent, because then, as I've mentioned before, that creates symmetrical, and not only does it expand your heart's toroidal field, but it creates symmetrical geometry in the plasma to bounce back to you as a very positive reality in the days to come. And if we can accept that, because it truly is the way that we form our reality, then it must be the case that we are determining our reality, and we are absolutely able to determine our reality. It is not set by someone else unless we give our power away, unless we allow that to happen. But the more you just work energetically, you don't have to be down at the town hall with a placard. You can really just do this energetically. Sometimes we need to be down at the town hall with the placard. So I'm not dissing that, but largely we simply operate from our center, because that's what we're doing 24/7. It's our ongoing frequency, our ongoing default broadcast frequency that makes the difference, not an hour here or there. And so keep on with that phrase, I'm welcoming in an expanded consciousness of love. I'm welcoming in an expanded consciousness of love, because that is what many of us are doing right now. And the more of us do that, say that, come together, we are actually altering the frequency in the quantum wave structure. That's how it works in physics. We're altering the frequency in the quantum wave structure. We are literally creating more coherence and different geometry out there in the plasma. We are creating from the invisible, and we always have created from the invisible. But because we've lived in such density and given our power away to external sources, we have been not very aware of that at all. And moving much more into air signs, we are going to become much, much more aware that the invisible has it, that we are creating from the invisible. And it's our interaction with the invisible, the disciplining of our thoughts, our emotions, staying in joy, bliss, all of those other wonderful emotions operating from the heart, living in love as often as we can, that we are really going to shift things quickly. And we absolutely are doing remarkably well versus where we were expected to be at this time. And in the video about the solstice, I mentioned some very good news also from Rory Duff, whose work I respect immensely. He's a wonderful geobiologist and pioneer, doing great work for us. So very positive feedback from him on what's happening with the Earth energy lines as well. So check that out. And I hope this has been helpful for you. Don't forget to set a new intention at the Gemini new moon. If you want more information about my books, videos, long monthly newsletter, just check out my website. And finally, but very importantly, I just want to say a huge thank you for the ongoing healing you're sending me. A huge thank you. It's making a remarkable difference. I mean, it really is, considering what I know the internal structure of my knee is like. It's making an incredible difference. And, you know, it's very humbling to have that much love coming to you. I get quite emotional about it. So if it's easy for you to continue to do that, I'd be just hugely, hugely thankful. God bless. Hope that's helped you. Bye for now, and I'll be back very soon with another video. A conversation, I hope, with Magenta Pixie about the solstice, which should be fascinating. Bye for now.